Welcome back to the Behind the Well show. I'm your host, Roger Abel, back with Elias. Elias, I'm guessing your belly got full last Thursday on Thanksgiving?
Extremely full.
So my question is, how did that turkey that your family member decided to smoke turn out versus the one that you usually do?
It was good. It was really good. It was delicious.
Whose was better? Do they listen to this
Dude,
podcast? Can you actually talk about it on this podcast?
It's just turkey. It's all the same.
That's so not true. It's not all the same.
It was good. It was. It was good.
Good.
I don't like to compare. Comparison is the thief of joy.
What was your favorite dish on Thanksgiving?
Well, my mother-in-law makes I think it's called sweet potato casserole, but it's like it's a pan of sweet potato, and then on top is butter, brown sugar, and like pecans or something. It's like a dessert, but it's good. So that's awesome. My favorite thing that's there.
Mine's the cranberry salad. It's like this cranberry jello. It's really good.
It sounds disgusting.
No, it's delicious. I'm not a huge cranberry fan, but it's like my mom sent me the recipe, so we made it. But anyway, I thought today we'd talk a little bit about one of the hottest topics in, I guess, anywhere right now, and it's artificial intelligence and how it's just reshaping a lot of things that we do. And there's a lot of things happening that people just don't even realize how integrated AI already is becoming. I know LPL, our broker-dealer, recently launched some technology that allows us to use it to client meeting. It's okay with the client. And it actually will take all the meeting notes, summarize it, create action items, just streamline things. And if you think about the follow-up after a client meeting that we have, it's probably like 30 minutes, right? Like after they leave, there's at least 30 minutes of just like taking the notes. Hey, here's a follow-up, sending these emails. Well, all of a sudden, if we go from 30 to 5, a couple of things happen. We become much more productive. It's better outcomes for the client because things don't get missed. You know, you don't have to look through your notes, say, oh, there's this follow-up item that got buried somewhere in my notes. We didn't get the follow-up item ready. It's all just summarized there. So there's a lot of really cool things happening in the world of AI. The challenging thing is AI is so good, it's going to start to fuel more financial exploitation. And I bring this to light because Janice Henderson, who's a product vendor out there in the mutual fund world, released, they did a survey just seeing how people feel about AI. And there's a very high level of concern around AI because of the ability to have highly sophisticated scams. And we haven't seen these yet. Well, they're probably out there. We just haven't quite seen them yet.
Well, I don't know if I've specifically seen a financial fraud type scam with AI, but I mean, I've seen TikTok videos and reels of someone talking, and then you're starting to think, did that person really say that?
And they didn't.
But it's AI generated, but it looks so real that it's easy to get tricked and think that that's really what happened. So, and with, whether it's and we already know that older retired folks tend to be solicited for scams and fraud and stuff like that between the telephone calls they get and whatever it is, phishing emails and spam emails. So although AI is going to do a lot of great things and help make businesses more efficient, and there's a lot of value to it, there's going to be a negative side that, if someone gets a phone call and it sounds like one of their relatives and it's really just a computer mimicking that person's voice and asking for money or something, and then they give that person money fraudulently, I definitely could see that happening. So people need to beware.
All of it's going to continue to evolve. And I think what's interesting for me, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but I'm going to venture to guess that a vast majority of the population is using AI and doesn't know it.
What do you mean by that?
When was the last time you went to Google?
Oh, all the time.
You know that little typed
Oh,
verbiage now?
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
AI pulling it from the internet and giving you this summary of the stuff that's out there. So,
Which is a great feature.
well, yeah,
for
but
that.
so now I found myself, I'm not even going to the website. I'm like reading the AI generated stuff, and how much weight do I want to put in that? How accurate do I believe that is? Because I've seen some AI stuff. You know, like I have a friend said, "Hey, tell me about this friend," and he played professional basketball, and he's like, "Well, yeah, about half of it's right, but I've never been a sports commentator." And in the AI summary, it's like, "Oh yeah, he was a sports commentator." He's like, "I've never been a sports commentator." So you got to remember, just because it's out there, it's not all true. And I think the reason I bring this up is there are going to be scams out there. They're going to try to take advantage of people's inability to figure out what's real and what's not, because it is very, very difficult. You know, this study actually shows 73% of investors feel AI tools will increase the risk of financial fraud. And I'm sure it will. It's going to be harder to trace it. It's going to be harder to figure out if it's real or not. So you're really going to have your radar up and be deciding, hey, is this something I want to get involved in or not? And not just randomly giving your bank account number out. I mean, just standard practices, right? Don't give your bank account over the phone to someone you don't really know. I understand it might sound like your family member, but why do they need your bank account?
They don't.
They don't. There should be
Well,
a better way to
shouldn't.
figure it out.
Yeah, they shouldn't. And this is something actually a client asked me the other day, if we're using AI in our practice at all for our company. I talked a little bit about the ways we are using it, but I did feel like there's a little bit of sense of, I think clients would be happy to know that we're using technology to be efficient, but I don't know if clients that work with a firm necessarily want their investment recommendations coming from AI.
Which there are companies doing that. We're not one of those companies.
Right. We're using some technology and things to increase our efficiency, but I think the clients really want that personal relationship, and they want the recommendations and the advice from us. I don't think they ever want to feel like, oh, a robot is now telling me what to do.
I know people don't want that. Think about in 2016, 17, 18, 19, what was the craze? Robo-advisors.
Yeah.
How many robo-advisors are out there truly being a robo-advisor? Not many. Most of them have been bought as a technology platform by a broker-dealer or some other RIA to help them be efficient with their investments, but nobody really wants to just go sign up with a computer.
No, very few people. Well, and certainly in my mind, and I don't really know people. I don't see people that have wealth deciding that robo-advising and an 800 number is the level of service that they want. Like, I don't think that's realistic.
So a friend of mine, we had this discussion about banking because there's a new digital bank that he really likes. He's like, they're going to take the world over. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe not, but I kind of like to walk into the bank, have a couple of laughs with people there. Like, I still want a personal relationship with a bank and my banker. I don't want to just be in the abyss.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to change.
I don't think it's going to change. I think, there's certain people that, they don't care if they have a relationship. That bank for them is just a spot to do transactions. My bank's a partner in my business and my life and everything that we do. So I value that relationship. How am I going to build a relationship with an online bank? The first thing something goes awry, what do I do?
It's just transactional.
The first thing something goes awry, what happens? I call an 800 number and try to straighten it out, and the guy on the other line has no idea who I am, has no idea my situation, nothing.
Well, that's what would happen.
It's 100% what would happen. And that's why even in our world, there's always going to be those touch points, because we're helping people figure out how to get to retirement, not have a retirement letdown, all of the different things that people actually have. Now, that said, is technology becoming more important in what we do? Absolutely. And I think one thing I want the listeners to know, and the reason I bring this up is I had an individual in the other day who retired from a job that was in the technology field. And I brought up the idea of this new software that we had to, kind of facilitate the meeting notes and the follow-up and the emails and some of the stuff to just provide better outcomes. And her question is, how did you find this? I said, that's a great question. I didn't. I said, my broker-dealer found this. And they're vetting the service. So we don't get to just go out and grab random software and use whatever we want. There's protocols that have to actually be approved by our broker-dealer, which is LPL, to use that software, because they're trying to safeguard the integrity and the data and all the client information that goes in there. Because one of the things we're not allowed to use AI for is personally identifiable information, PII, social security numbers and things of that nature. You can't use AI with any of that stuff. But I think people think we can just go use any software we want out there. And that's not reality. We have to have it approved by LPL before we can actually use it.
And that's, to me, that's a good thing. And for us as a company, it's more efficient for us to get guidance from them too, because they have people that is their job. So that's their expertise to figure out what solutions should we allow our advisors to offer, right? Where if we were going to seek out that type of AI service and figure it out for ourselves, it would be a very time-consuming project. And that's not really our lane, right? Like, our lane's not really technology development. Should you be able to use it for? What shouldn't you be able to use it for? So it is nice that we have a resource that can say, hey, here's the value that this can provide for your company. Here's the ways you can use it. And this is the service that we're basically approving for you to use.
For sure. And it's going to help us do a lot of different things. One of the things that helps us do is, there are software programs we use to help people create retirement plans. And most people don't have a plan. Like, I'm looking at a study that hit Newsweek. 56% of Americans have no solid plan for what they're going to do after retirement. So think about that. I mean, I don't know. Do you think that's 56% don't have a plan because they don't have anything and there's no neat reason to have a plan? Like, this is a serious question. Is that number so high because, well, I don't have anything, so I'm going to live on Social Security, so why do I actually need a plan? Like,
that has something to do with it.
That has to be.
There's way more people. There's way more people in America that never build any sort of net worth at all than there are people that have. So it's probably a product of just a general lack of savings, right? And there's plenty of people that they don't ever invest and save enough to really have meaningful amounts of money. And I think probably the other part of it is, even if you're planning on, well, I'm going to live on Social Security, that's still some sort of plan, but in your mind, that might not be, right? That might not be a formal financial plan. But like, whatever you're going to do, whether you've put thought into it or whether you're getting help from someone, it's some sort of plan.
Okay, since we're talking about AI technology, retirement planning, I just had this thought. Here's the one thing AI can't help somebody do yet. AI can assist with some of the financial stuff, right? Like, oh yeah, they could help us figure out cash flow needs, et cetera, et cetera. We could use that. We can take a tax return and scan it through the AI software and know what tax bracket you're in and all that stuff. AI can't help the individual prepare for retirement or operate in retirement from the non-financial aspects.
Not at this point.
And
computers think optimally, right? They don't factor in emotion and how things make people feel. And psychology.
There's something out there called retirement letdown. Like, oh, it's not really what I thought it was. individual the other day. They're like, man, I really struggled for the first 90 days of retirement because they didn't have an idea of what they were going to do. And AI can't help you do that. Technology can't help you do that. Can't help you put together a plan of how you're going to navigate the retirement landscape when you're done. And it kind of goes to the question, you know, there was a study out there. This was released by Hartford Funds. 50% of the people said before retiring, financial professionals should help plan for non-monetary aspects of retirement. So that would be, okay, you haven't retired, we're going to help plan for it. 90% said after they retire, the financial professional should help them plan for those non-monetary aspects.
90% of people?
Yeah. Yep. 90% said after retiring.
I mean, that's
the need for holistic, because holistic financial planning is what they're referring to, but holistic is everything. That's the non-financial parts too. Someone tells you they do holistic financial planning and they only do the numbers, that's only part of it. Holistic is everything. But here's what's shocking to me. Why is it after you retire? Why aren't you preparing before? Like, why aren't we bringing it up 5 and 7 and 10 years? Because a lot of things that people are going to do in retirement require planning further in advance. Let's use the example. I got it. Here's the example. You want to plan for moving to California the day after you retire or before?
I don't know. What do you mean, before or after?
Before or after retirement. Do you want to plan for moving to California before retirement or after?
Oh, before.
Yeah, why?
So you're prepared to do it.
Well, taxes.
Right, and taxes.
Taxes, but also you gotta start to figure out, like, how am I going to live there too? The non-financial stuff. So those are things that AI can't help anybody with, and nobody wants to go into retirement and feel bad about it. Like, that happens. Retirement's not rosy for everybody.
How bad do you think some people feel?
Bad. Okay, let's assume you're not inherently an extrovert, right? You're pretty closed off. And you've been going to the same job and you have this sense of community. And all of a sudden you don't have anybody around you and you don't really want to meet people. You're going to start to feel a sense of isolation. At the end of the day,
they're making me feel depressed.
Think the numbers say 68% of people that retire, what they miss about their jobs is social interaction. 68%.
Right. Okay. So which points to.
So that's problem one.
Points to there's a lot that goes into it that's not financial.
Okay. The second thing, 38% of people miss from their career their mental stimulation.
Yeah, that's hard to replace.
32% miss the sense of identity.
Also hard to replace.
So basically a third of the people feel some type, whether it's misidentity, social interaction, mental stimulation, have some letdown in retirement. So if I was retiring, what do you think the 3 areas I'd be thinking about? How are we going to handle
those?
Social interaction. What am I going to do for social interaction? What are the things I like to do? Where are the places I can go? Is it church? Is it, some club? Is it volunteering somewhere? Where am I going to get this? 2, how am I going to stimulate my mind? Because, waking up and drinking my delicious coffee every morning and spending 2 hours in my chair reading the paper, that's not really stimulating, right? And we've seen...
It's a good way to start the day.
It's a great way to start. It's how I start the day, like the Ozarks in the summer.
There
But
you go.
you got to stimulate your mind somehow. And if you don't stimulate your mind, what's going to happen? Cognitively, you're going to decline quicker.
Yeah, you'll decline faster.
I've watched it. I've watched this happen to people that leave the job and within 10 years, their self-confidence is down. Cognitively, they're down. They're not as healthy as they were. And it's not because they're living less healthy. I think the social interaction and that sense of, identity and stimulation really starts to drag that individual down.
Well, I think the flip side of this for the folks that don't have this letdown or don't struggle with it, well, I think the reason they don't is whether they're intentionally addressing these things or just addressing them because they've made a choice to stay active. I think they're better off, right? I mean, the retired families that we work with, that they have hobbies, they do things, they volunteer, they continue to be productive, I guess, tend to have a more fulfilling life. But I would say even with, I think the hardest thing to replace is the mental stimulation. Because I don't know that there's really, like, anything you do, like, what's more challenging than your career? From just a mental, like, problem solving and thinking, right? So you're probably never going to be at that level. And I do think even people that get these other things right, like I've noticed with some people, once they stop working, I feel like mentally they do start to slip a little bit. And it's not drastic, but like I'll notice small things, like either they'll repeat stories, right? It's just like little things like that maybe they didn't do before. So that's probably because when you're not going to, like when you go to work, no matter what you do, every day is interaction, socializing, problem solving, right? It's a lot of mentally challenging tasks consistently for 6, 7, 8 hours. And unless you're going to do and most people when they retire, they don't want that level of intensity anymore, right? Like they want to do their hobbies and stay active. But that's probably the hardest thing to replace.
And this just came to mind. We're only talking about retirees. This same thing happens to people who stay home with kids and raise kids.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, your wife stays home. Mine stays home. And my wife, we have both of them go to school now and kind of like settled into a routine. This is the first year we both were at school full time. And I was like, man, what am I going to do? And I think what she's craving is some social interaction and some mental stimulation.
Yeah. I mean, my wife spends a good 5 hours a day only socializing with a 2-year-old.
Yeah, but that's challenging, right? Like raising a 2-year-old and being there all day, that's actually a lot of work.
Yes.
Think about when the 2-year-old now is in kindergarten and gone all day. Like there's 6 or 7 hours that there's zero stimulation and you're trying to figure out, because I'm falling, I have this talk with my wife, like, hey, where do you want to volunteer? What do you want to do? She wants to maybe do a little work. It's not for money. It's for stimulation, sense of some worth.
Something.
So it's not just individuals retiring. If you're thinking about staying home full time, you should have these thoughts too. Like, yep, I'm going to be really busy with the kids when there's kid stuff. But at some point, some of that goes away. With that said, that's the stuff AI can't help with, and I think is really important to include in your planning before you actually retire. These are the things, this is the way you prevent, retirement letdown, is by planning on what we're going to do, how we're going to make sure these 3 kind of, deficiencies that people have identified are there. That's social interaction, mental stimulation, sense of identity. You literally could write that down. What am I going to do to satisfy these things for myself? And you'd probably be pretty well off.
Yeah, you could, on a notepad, you could draw 3 circles.
Yeah. It's
and
that
then
simple.
Fill in the circles with, how do I address this?
It's 15 minutes of thought could probably massively increase your fulfillment in retirement. And it can evolve. It doesn't have to remain the same. With that said, I do want to move on to one thing, because it is the holiday season. Christmas is ramping up, and most families are in the point where they're starting to spend money and, buying Christmas presents. And arguably for many families, it's probably the most expensive time of the year. And one of the things that I was alerted to, there's been a massive increase in 401k loan use. And it's actually not surprising to me, because about 6 months ago, we hit an all-time high in credit card debt. combined with all-time high interest rates. So if your credit cards are maxed out, your bank account's maxed out, where are you going next?
401k loan.
401k loan. And that's what people are doing. And I think one of the things we should talk about are what are the disadvantages of taking a 401k loan? Because I think people see this as like, oh yeah, it's my money. And it is your money. But you're really being detrimental to your future self.
Oh, the opportunity cost is massive.
It's massive. Now, that said, let's run a scenario. Let's say, because I'm pretty anti 401k loans unless it's like last resort. Last resort, it's not last resort to remodel the bathroom. It's like last resort to pay a bill that has to be paid before creditors start coming, right? Mm-hmm. Like this isn't a slush fund. The only place that I see like a 401k loan where there might be some potential justification for it, in my view, others might have a different view. Let's say you're starting a business. You're going to utilize it for another appreciating asset. And you wanted to use some of those funds because you're really swapping an asset that should go up in value, your 401k, for another asset that either has a return or goes up in value. So here's a really good question to ask yourself if you're going to utilize a 401k. Does it generate dividends, income, or the potential for capital gains? Because that's actually the definition of an investment. And if it does those things, that's about the only time I'd really ever want to see someone go borrow from their 401k, because they're moving money from one investment to another investment. But there are some pitfalls with 401k loans.
There's some pitfalls because as long as you stay employed with the company you took the loan out, there's not as many pitfalls. But if you were to leave or get laid off, you got to pay that loan back. So those pitfalls, right? You get laid off, leave that employment, you got to pay that loan back. And if there's anyone listening, they're not sure how that works. Roger, how does it work if you leave employment, separated from employment, you have a 401k loan, and you do not pay it back? What happens after that?
Basically, you have till the end of the year. So let's say you cease employment in September. You have till the end of the year to pay it back. If you don't, here's what happens. That becomes a early distribution. So if you had a $50,000 loan that you defaulted on, which in this world, default doesn't affect your credit or any of that. It's just, hey, you're not paying it back. The $50,000 becomes taxable and subject to a 10% penalty, assuming you're younger than 59 and a half.
Turns into a distribution.
So is that the end of the world? No, but for a lot of people, that means you're taking 30% chunk out of this money and you actually have to come up with it. So think about this. You took a $50,000 loan on a 401k in June. That's the max you can do if you have, it's 50% or 50,000 typically is the limit. Take a $50,000 loan in June. You lose your job in August. Well, you clearly needed the $50,000 for something, right? Like you couldn't afford, or you're paying something back. Now you default on that. So you're going to owe $10,000 in federal tax, let's just say. You're going to owe another $5,000 in penalty. So now you got to come up with another $15,000 of tax time.
And state income tax.
So that's where it becomes very dangerous to start using 401k loans, because you could really, not only are you taking the money out of your future retirement, you potentially, if you can't pay it back, are facing some pretty steep penalties. And no one thinks they're going to lose their job.
Right. Now you're looking at borrowing money just to get caught up on your tax bill.
Right. And guess who you don't want creeping into your life?
The IRS.
The IRS. That's the last. You do not want the IRS boogeyman in your life. It's the last person you want around. So if anybody out there is thinking about doing a 401k loan to fund their Christmas this year, please don't do it. Find another alternative. Maybe have a discussion with your family that, hey, this year's not the year we're going to go all out for Christmas, because we don't want to put our future retirement in jeopardy to to buy a bunch of presents that likely are going to Goodwill in 3 or 4 years anyway. With that said, do you have any closing remarks for today's show, Elias?
Yeah, everyone have a good holiday season, and I'm sure you can find a way to have a Merry Christmas without robbing your retirement accounts if you really want to.
That's good insight. I want to thank everybody for listening. If you're looking for help getting a financial plan or any financial advice, you can get us at btwellshow.com. Follow us on Facebook, social, X, YouTube. And if you like the content, please make sure that you subscribe. We can keep getting weekly content like this out to you. Thanks for listening.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this show are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Premier Investments and Wealth Management and LPL Financial do not provide tax advice. Please consult your tax professional. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. There's no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Rebalancing a portfolio may cause investors to incur tax liabilities and/or transaction costs, and does not assure profit or protect against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is not a guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of principal.